that we have for us. Father, as I go into the Word this morning, I always seek your wisdom to come through, that I get the Word as accurate as I possibly can to those that have it here. That understanding may be in the people's hearts too as we go forward in this. Lord, I call your blessings on each and every one and their families that are represented here, and continue health of this church as we go forward. I pray for the whole church here as we go, in each and everything we do. And I ask this in Christ's holy name. Amen. We're continuing in Daniel this morning, chapter 8. There's a lot in this. It's somewhat a reflection of chapter 7, which we just had last week. We actually have some of the same thing over again, but also it's leading into the rest of this. Most of the book now is pure prophecy and what will be taking place. There's parts of it, if we look at it seriously, it is scary. Very much so. But there is solace in it. It sees what we have in the end time future. It gives us a promise there we see. As we open in Daniel here, chapter 8, I may open in it. This is not really a dream this time. It is a vision, as he calls it. Chapter 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, the vision appeared to me, I, Daniel, after the one appeared to me the first time. Now, the 3rd year, this is 2 years after his vision he saw in his dream in chapter 7. So we've moved along 2 years, and he has a vision. And verse 2 here, I saw a vision, and so have while I was at Shanshu, the citadel, which is the province of Elam, I saw a vision. I was by the river Ulai. Another vision. This is not the same vision or dream that he had in chapter 7. Although there are some similarities. Chapter 7, we went a long period of time. We went from 533 BC to the future, out here beyond where we are today in this. And this got Daniel rather shook up. And he gets shook up again in this vision also quite a bit. But this is a shorter period of time on the concentration of it. It is coming to the immediate time, just into the next few years from this time, where you get a great deal more material that he sees in this. It is about to happen. But it does continue, and it even goes into the future here. By the time we end up at the end of the chapter here, what he sees. But this gives, he has a more detailed vision of what is just around the corner for him. In this, okay, Shanshu is kind of one of the chief cities of Babylon. Now, in the vision, he sees himself there, but evidently he's still in the city of Babylon. Shanshu is one of the capital cities of the Babylon Empire at this time. The river here, Ulai, looking up, I see some think it was a man-made river or more of a canal. It's desert now. It's nothing there, hardly. It's an arid, dry area. So between what was there then and what is there today, there is a world of difference. Now, it unfolds somewhat historically, as we see as we look here in this. In verse 3, then I lifted up my eyes, and I saw standing beside the river was a ram, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns, one was higher, but the other was higher, and the higher one, came up last. In other words, one horn, then the other one that goes higher grows up faster. This is a representation of the Medo-Persian Empire. We find that defined definitely in verse 20 of this chapter. But that's what it is. He looks and sees. Now, in chapter 7, you remember when we referred to the Medo-Persian Empire, the symbol was a bear, but it was a little bit one-sided, one side coming up more, which meant one side had more power. The Medes come in first, then Persia come in, and they joined together, and Persia actually overpowered the Medes, but they were together. That's why you see one animal representing the two countries as they come together, Medo-Persia. It's more referred to later in history as Persia. We think of it today as Persia, but we don't have a country of Persia. We have Iraq, Iran, and that area. That was the Persian Empire for a while. Now, Babylon did not last that long, although it was the first, go back to chapter 2. It was the golden head in the statue of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, which Daniel interpreted for him. That was man's vision of what would be. In chapter 7 and 8, we're getting God's vision of the same period of time, and it gets more into it. He sees these as beasts, where Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, as I described, the transformer. But as we get on into it, we see that God, he just sees earthly things as grotesque beasts. And let's face it, look at history. We have been grotesque beasts in that. Now, we get a little bit of a conflict from our theologians on prophecy, beginning right here in kind of verse 2. A lot of theologians, they get to it. We get almost a kind of a parallel here. Now, this gets a little confusing. I'll try not to confuse you too much. They give what Daniel sees here as coming around into Anti's Epiphanes. The others goes straight to the Antichrist. There's parallels. Now, in these beasts, what we see, I'm going to get verse 3 and 4. We're kind of going to come. We're going forward, but this goes forward and backwards as we go through the chapter. Let's see this. But verse 3 here. Now lifted up my eyes, I saw standing beside the river a ram. Expensive. Verse 4. I saw a ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no animal could withstand him, nor was there any that could deliver from his hand. But he did according to his will and became great. This again, the Babylon Empire, Medo-Persia coming together. They took over most of the area. They took over Babylon. Remember, the handwriting on the wall. That's in the future from this vision. That's back in chapter 5. But that was before this. And I was considered suddenly a male goat came from the west across the surface of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between its eyes. This goat is the Grecian Empire. The horn between its eyes represents its first king, or first really ruler, Alexander the Great. We talked about him last week. We see him in a little different picture this time, but this is the same one. And then he came, the ram. Then he came to the ram with the two horns I seen standing beside the river, and at him furious pair. I refer to Alexander the Great as being for the first real military tactician a while back. He had this blitzkrieg attack when he went after something. He's coming after the Medo-Persian Empire in this vision here. 35,000 soldiers coming with him. He's coming at such a rapid speed and taking it as he goes. But this ended up being a 4-year battle for him to take over the Medo-Persian Empire. Hitler evidently studied him because that was his way of attacking. Well, we had a great general not long ago. He studied them. He took Iraq, boom, with this blitzkrieg type attack. So, you have that. But in verse 3, verse 20 of this chapter, it tells us definitely this is Medo-Persian Empire. This is when the angel gives the interpretation to Daniel. And he saw him pushing this goat takes over the ram immediately. This is the symbol of it. Now, you'll find coins, or well, they had coins back then, and probably find pictures of the coin. The Medo-Persian had a coin with a ram on it. The Greek had a goat on theirs. So you come back, you find this through history. History puts this part together. This is a vision at this time. This is a prophecy at this time. Today, this is history, this part is here. And it came the ram with 2 horns and sin standing beside the river and no power. I saw it confronting the ram as moved and raged against it, attacking the ram and broke its 2 horns. No power the ram could withstand him, but he cast down to the ground and trampled him, and there's no one that could deliver him from the ram's hand. Now, that was the end of the Medo-Persian Empire, began the Greek Empire. The Greek Empire really did not last that long, but as Alexander the Great, I remember last week I talked, he went all the way to India, taking the land and everything. By the age of 32, he'd conquered the known world. He died at 33. We have various ways. Some say he just died of a drunken stupor and what have you. I saw, this has been some time ago, so I do not remember everything. I saw a documentary on the death of Alexander the Great. They'd gone back and kind of dug up a little of him. Took DNA even. We don't know how accurate all this is. Yeah, he had a drunken party, but they also told about him drinking out of a spring that was poisoned. But he thought he would not be poisoned because he had some kind of little stone that he kept with him all the time. They dipped into his drinks and everything. It's supposed to keep all the poison out. Well, it didn't keep this poison out, but they researched this stone and found it will eliminate certain poisons. Not all of them. He had too much faith in a rock. But then he was a...
He had faith in the wrong rock.
Yeah, the wrong... He got it right. He had faith in the wrong rock. Yeah. Not the solid rock of Christ. Anyway, however, we go back and talk about these people in history. He definitely took over. Now, since he did not have an heir, per se, his boy was too young, everybody hated his wife, it was divided up between his 4 generals. And that's where you get the 4 little horns. And then in the other prophecy, we saw where the leopard had 4 heads. That's your 4 heads in that. But you get the 4 horns coming up out of this as his area is divided. And out of that, in verse 9, we got, and out of one, then came a little horn which grew, well, 8 and 9 here. Therefore the goat very proud and large horn broke. That's where he broke. And out of that came then a little horn exceedingly towards the south and towards the west and glorious. Then grew the most heaven and cast down some wholesome stars. All right, this is where we are beginning to where we see a parallel or a difference between a lot of our theologians. They take where he cast down the heavenly host and everything and the stars. Epiphanes. He is the one that came out of one of the four kingdoms later on from the four generals as he went in. He went towards Israel and took that area. Epiphanes had a huge, great distaste for the Jewish people. He hated them. This is some years later. This is 175 BC, approximately. He came out of Syria and took all that area over. He lasted to 163 BC. Anyway, he went in, took over the temple. He killed, when he raided Jerusalem, he killed a multitude of the Hebrew people. He done away with circumcision. He done away with the temple. He went into the temple, got the scrolls, all that he could find, the written material of the Jewish people, and burned it. He tried to destroy every writing of them. Now, a lot of theologians put that he is the one in this prophecy totally. Other theologians put this is lines for the Antichrist. Well, I'm leaning a little bit more towards this as prophecy of the Antichrist. But what you will see here is a parallel of what the Antichrist will have in the future and what Epiphanes did in this time to Israel. History repeats itself. This is something we have to look forward. Well, it's something we're going to see. We don't have nothing to look forward to in this. We do if you have your faith in Jesus Christ. You do. You won't be here for it.
I mentioned something on the subject of what you just said. Me and my mom were talking about how there are only two nations that have claimed to unite under God. Israel is one of them, and then what's the other one?
America.
And look what both of them have done time and time again.
They've deserted God time and time again, too.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. And God has punished Israel, his chosen people, time and time again, too. That's how come they're in captivity in Babylon. They've refused to keep a covenant there of the Sabbath year for 490 years. So we're punished with 70 years of imprisonment in Babylon for refusing to keep a covenant. Let's see.
It ain't any better. In fact, it's looking like we're starting to get a little worse.
Mm-hmm. Here we are.
Well, it's just like with everything that's happening in America and all over the world, and people keep saying, "Road is God," and that road is God. We have pushed him so far away that he's there. He hasn't moved, but America has moved so far away from him, and that's what I see in all of these horrible tragedies, whether it's everything that's happening here, and everybody keeps exclaiming, not Christians, but where was God? Why is God, and denying God, and us as a nation is denying God. It's not,
Yeah.
but I think that's some of his wrath, personally.
Well, it won't have anything to do with it until something happens.
That's right.
And they want to kill.
Yeah. Well, they blame it on him, too.
Yeah,
The thing is, we're not even a nation anymore.
Yep. We're going to be accountable. We are going. But what I'm going to right here, he did outlaw the Jewish religion. He did everything he could to antagonize, and we talked about the desecration of the temple there. He did that. Well, it's in my papers here. I'll find the date. Anyway, one day he did go in. He sacrificed a sow, a pig, on the altar. That is the most insulting thing you could have done in a Jewish temple. That is a pure insult to the whole race. Spread the blood, spread the juices all over and ruined it. Judas Maccabean, you hear of the Maccabean revolt? He led the people in to go against it. It took years to do it. And you have a Maccabean book in the Catholic Bible which tells this. But that's what took place there, and finally the temple was cleansed. And you will see in a little bit we get this number of days here, 2,300 days, and it's that period of time from where he come in before the temple was cleansed. Now, I don't know that's part of the prophecy right there on that, but we do not get a total interpretation of this 2,300 days in here. But this is where the Jewish people also get their Hanukkah from, as they celebrate this, the cleansing of the temple and regaining their temple after this. Because of that. That is their celebration of Hanukkah.
Like a miracle that happened, they did oil and it lasted
Yeah.
for so long.
They held them. I'll have to look up a little bit more of that but this is where they have their celebration of that. It is derived from this. Now, I want to get down where we get the thing for the host of the heavens and say cast down the host of heavens. And I go back to that being, some get this is casting down of Israel and the casting down of the Jewish people. I won't go back. This is more. This is trying the Antichrist casting down Christ, reaching that high. Let's go back to Joshua. Joshua 5:13 through 15. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho, they lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said, Are you for us or for our adversary? He said, No, but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face of the earth and worshiped, and said to him, What does my Lord say to his servant? Then the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, Take off your sandal off your foot, for the place you stand is holy ground. And Joshua did so. Now who is that? The Lord.
Because there's only one person who commands God's army, and it's himself.
That's right. So when you get the host right there, let's get where the interpretation comes from, who the host of heaven is. It's not the Israel people. So see, this is where I'm taking you back. I'm a little different than some of our theologians. I'm taking back, this is prophecies against the Antichrist. Now, I'm including Antiochus Epiphanes. He is part of history. There's a parallel in what he has done here. But then we want to get let's get back over to Daniel now. Cast down the host of heaven, and cast down some of the host, the same of the stars of the ground. Verse 11. And he even exalted himself as high as the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice were taken away, and the place of the sanctuary was cast down. Now, make a note right here. It's verse 11. In your Bible, it's daily. Now, next word's italicized, sacrificed. Go back to the Hebrew. This chapter is written in Hebrew. Chapter 7 was written in Aramaic. This chapter is pertaining more to the Jewish people. The other was pertaining to the whole world. Chapter 1 was Hebrew. The next chapters until this one was in Aramaic. I found this out. I don't do Hebrew. I'm not good on it at all. But the word sacrifice is not in the original manuscripts. That's why it's italicized in our Bible. It was put in by the translators to mean that's what they thought. I'm not sure, and I've learned this was really meant. Daily. This is kind of an adjective here that should be a noun. The daily. It kind of, yeah. It means it is a continual thing that he tried to stop here. And this is the priest being in the temple and studying and giving. And let's see. In verse 29, Exodus 28 here, and so Aaron shall bear the names of the sons of Israel on their breastplate of judgment. Yeah, he's the original priest. And he goes into the holy place as a memorial before the Lord continually. As the priests were to be there, they were a continual priest at the temple. The fire on the altar always stayed on continually. It's like an eternal flame was there. It was attended all the time. Now, in Hebrews, I've lost place exactly where in Hebrews, we find that the priests were there contented. And it says, or when he's speaking of Jesus, that they were not continued because they died. But now we have a continual priest in Jesus. This is a continual. So that's where I'm getting. It's daily, it's continual. Continually should be the word that would be in place of this from some study I found. That's what I say. We get a parallel. We get theologians that disagree on this a little bit. I'm trying to give you both of them here a little bit. I'm leaning more towards the continual priesthood here and the continual off this. This, I admit, trying to keep it all right here is, let's see. Yeah, that's Hebrews 7. Also, there were many priests because they were prevented by death from continuing. In other words, that's the reason they could not continue. They died. They're human. But he, because he continued forever, an unchangeable priesthood. Therefore, he is able to save to the utmost those who come to God through him, since he always lives and makes intercession for them. That's speaking of Christ.
That's Hebrews 7, 24 and 25. Hebrews 7, 24 and 25.
Yeah. But that's where I'm trying to draw the line to connect to what this is here when we have the daily and sanctuary. Because the transgressions of an army was given over the horn to oppose the daily, and it says that, and cast truth down to the ground. He did all this purposely. Now, it indicates, well, let's go on here. Then I heard a holy one speaking, and another holy one said that certain one was speaking. How long will the vision be concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation and giving of both sanctuary and host to be trampled underfoot? And he said to me, for 2,300 days, then the sanctuary shall be cleansed. Now that period of time I mentioned, that corresponds to the time that Antiochus Epiphanes came in there, desecrated it, until Judas Maccabeus actually cleansed it. That is a historical date in that. Then it happened when I, Daniel, had seen the vision and was seeking the manner, that suddenly stood before me one having the appearance of a man. And I heard the man's voice between the banks of Ulai, and called out and said, Gabriel, make this man understand the vision. I'd say it's the voice of God. This is the first time an angel is actually named in the Bible, Gabriel. He wants Daniel to understand the vision that's coming. So make clear. And he came to me where I stood, and he came, and I was afraid and fell on my face. But he said to me, understand of man that the visions refer to the times of the end. That's the end out here. We have not got to the end. Where some, this is only looking a couple of hundred, 400 years ahead altogether here. Now, Antiochus Epiphanes, he did blaspheme God. He kept putting him down over and over. But we see here, the angel looks to him and says to the future. And it came to pass. And now I'm speaking of which me, deep sleep. Now, as he's speaking to me, I was in a deep sleep, and my face to the ground. But he touched me and stood me up and said, Look, I am making known to you what shall happen in the latter time of the indignation, for the appointed time the end shall be. The ram which you saw, having 2 horns, and they are the kings of Media and Persia. And the male goat is the kingdom of Greece. And the large horn between his eyes is the first king. See, we get a clear interpretation now from what he saw in the beginning, from the angel. This right here speaks directly. This Medo-Persia and the king of Greece. The first king was Alexander the Great. So right here in the Bible, we get the interpretation. And the male goat, all right. As for the broken horn, and the 4 stood up in his place, is the 4 kingdoms that shall rise out of the nation, not with his power. In other words, they were not descendants of Alexander the Great. It became divided into 4 from what Alexander the Great had. They had less power. They did not have his power. It was not inherited from it. They just divided. And the angel speaks again. And in the latter times of their kingdom, when the transgressions have reached their fullness, a king shall arise, having fierce features and understanding and sinister schemes. His power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. Get this right here. Not by his own power. Whose power will he have? Satan's, the devil's, yes. So that goes to the Antichrist. This is where, in my opinion, we totally leave Epiphanies behind. He's out of the picture. He's just a small blip on the radar of history. He was a nasty, nasty person. He did a lot of damage, but he did not leave a mark on history per se. He shall destroy fearfully and shall prosper and thrive. Yes, he's going to come right up. He's going to grab everything. He shall destroy the mighty and also the holy people. Who's the holy people? We are. The holy people are the Christians, those who put their faith and trust in God. So that is to come. This is future now. Though his cunning shall cause deceit and prosper under the rule, he shall exalt himself in his heart. He shall destroy many and their properties. He shall even rise against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without human means. Now, who's the prince of princes? Christ. Be destroyed without human means? Powers of heaven will destroy him. God, Jesus. This is the battle of Armageddon, is what. And this vision of evening mornings, which was told true, therefore seal up the vision, for it refers to many days into the future. That's the angel, what he's telling Daniel. Verse 27. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick for days. Afterwards I arose and went about the king's business. What was his job? He looked after the king's business. I was astonished by the vision, but no one understood it. Now, the angel did not answer about the 2,300 days. Let's try that in chapter 9. See that? Now, how many are confused this morning? Yeah, this will keep. Now, if y'all want to gather around and talk about this sometime, I'm willing to. There's a lot more in my notes than what I have given here. Yes, Howard.